I'm James Henson, and welcome to the Walk Through Open Doors podcast. I have 20 years of experience as a therapist, mentor, and coach, and in that time I've helped countless people recognize the opportunities available to them regardless of their situation, and I've helped them make choices that align with their values and keep them excited about their lives. In this podcast, I'll show you how to walk through open doors, those opportunities that are right in front of you that are affordable, exciting, aligned, and sustainable. Far too often, people miss these moments by focusing on struggle or getting trapped by jealousy and victimhood. My goal is to show you that life doesn't always have to be difficult. Sometimes the right path is right in front of you. Each week we'll talk about practical steps and mindset shifts to help you act with clarity and confidence. Whether you're a leader, an entrepreneur, or someone looking for change, this podcast will help you step into the rooms you want to be in. So I've got this Eeyore coffee mug that my oldest son's mom gave me about 23 or 24 years ago. It's super old. I've had it for a long time. And it's got a picture of Eeyore, and then on the back it says, might as well smile and get it over with. And she gave that to me years and years ago because that was so indicative of my character. I identified with Eeyore. I was kind of proud of it. I was grumpy, and I found the problem and everything. And for some reason, I thought that made me smarter than everybody else. I thought it made me cool. I don't know. It was my nature. It was the way I was. It had become like a strong aspect of my character to complain and be ungrateful. And so I like the cup. I like drinking coffee out of it and drinking tea out of it. But I've held on to it just as a reminder of that negative mindset. And I don't know, it just kind of takes me back to remind me about how difficult that time in my life was and how miserable I was as a person. And the more that I've changed from that, being around people like that has also made me realize that I was probably pretty miserable for all the people who had to be around me as well. And so today, as we keep talking about these keys to open doors, the mindsets and the ways of being that will allow you to get the most out of your life, that will allow you to do the things you want to do, that will allow you to recognize and seize opportunity, we have to talk about gratitude. It is one of the most important things we can possibly bring into our life. It is one of the most important ways for us to live as people. I personally believe that you cannot be in line with reality itself if you aren't grateful. Like if you're not grateful, you are swimming upstream all the time, and it's a miserable way to live. All that being said, gratitude is not a silver bullet that fixes everything. It is not always appropriate, and it has to be balanced with a sense of reality, with acknowledging what's really going on. So what we're really going to talk about is having honest gratitude, a sense of gratitude that is in line with the way reality works, that acknowledges the hard things, that acknowledges the things that don't go our way, that acknowledges just the hard shit in life. Because without that, it's very fake, it's very shallow, it has no roots, and it doesn't take much to knock it over. And you end up kind of imposing it on other people in a really unhealthy way, and that's never helpful for anybody. So I'm no stranger to being ungrateful. Like I said, I made a whole personality out of it for a long time. It was just my identity and my being, and I was kind of proud of it. And I still struggle with it from time to time. 2024 started off with one of the most difficult things I've ever been through. And that kind of colored the whole year. Over the course of this year, I've had some people die. My father-in-law passed away, and that was hard. We were close. We spent a lot of time with them. Watching the impact of that on my wife, it's the first real death she's experienced, and watching how that has just impacted her and is kind of changing the trajectory of how she lives. That's been hard. That's not easy, on top of sorting out my own feelings of grief and my own feelings of how this changed our life and how this impacted things. Then I've had some health issues this year. I didn't realize my blood pressure had gotten out of control again and was really messing with me. And I was really sick for a lot of this year without realizing why. I've had some thyroid issues. I've had COVID twice, really bad COVID twice. And all of this together has just made life feel difficult. I've had to recognize and accept some character aspects of people that I'm close with that have been in my life for a long time that were contrary to what I thought they were, and kind of changed how I saw them. I've had to acknowledge that, oh my gosh, something's changed, or they are not who I thought they were. But I've had to sort out how to relate to that, how to manage that in my life. For one of them, I really strongly consider just removing them from my life. But life is not cut and dried. Life is all these different shades of gray. And so there's been a lot of things this year that have reminded me about how hard life can be. There have been a lot of things that have reminded me in other people's lives just about how difficult life is. I don't know what it is, but something about this post-2020 world just seems to have created a lot of difficulty for a lot of people. And because of the work I do and because of, I think maybe just the kind of person I am, like I hear this from a lot of people, like people seem to seek me out to tell me about it. You know, so what I say, I think that I'm a lot more useful than I am likable. So I end up having a whole lot of these conversations with people about the things that are going wrong in their life and what to do about them. So I say all of that to tell you that I'm not this person that just thinks that gratitude is in every moment and that it's just this natural outpouring of who I really am, and that life and that we should always just be grateful for everything in life. Like I don't believe that. I think there are things that suck, there are things that are hard, and we need to acknowledge that, or else we're not being honest. So when we talk about honest gratitude, that's what I'm encouraging you to practice, is to understand that in every moment there are things to be grateful for. In every single second of every single day, there are things that we can be grateful for that are working out, that are going right. But those things do not cancel out the hard things. Those things do not take the hard things and just make them disappear to where it's just all sunshine and roses. Like that's not the world we live in. And I hope that's not the world you live in, because if that's the way you see life, then I'm really afraid that there's going to be something that comes along that just completely knocks you off your path and you won't know how to get back up. Like not being able to acknowledge the hard parts of life creates a very deep fragility in people. It creates a brittleness that eventually sinks them. That's just what I've seen over and over and over again. But on the other side of that, a person who refuses to have gratitude, a person who is very invested in cynicism and talking about how much everything sucks and how nothing goes right and how people equal shit and all those stupid things that people say, those people are also very brittle as well. They just tend to, when they get knocked off their path, it turns into bitterness and anger and just, you know, that just brutal cynicism instead of the despair and the depression that other people seem to face. So it's about acknowledging reality without like going too far one direction or the other. Yeah, there are things that suck in life, but in general, more goes right than goes wrong. And if that weren't true, this world would be just an absolute hellscape. And if you're one of those people in your head right now who's thinking like, well, this world is a hellscape, that's stupid. That's stupid. There are places in this world that are a hellscape right now. But if you're listening to this podcast, I doubt you live in one of them. And even those places that are hellscapes, people find things that to give them meaning. They find things to keep them going. And these things cycle throughout history. Like what was a terrible place 100 years ago, many places are nice now and vice versa. So it's just part of life. Like there are things we can be grateful for. There's things we're going to struggle with. Acknowledging that and accepting that, but choosing gratitude, choosing to like angle or lean towards gratitude can make everything so much easier. And like I said, I believe it puts you more in line with the flow of reality, because a lot more goes right than goes wrong. You know, I feel weird doing another podcast about gratitude because I've done so many of them, and I need to go back and listen to the old ones because now I'm curious how much my views on gratitude have changed. Like when I first started doing this podcast, 2016, 2017, somewhere in there, I did live more in a mindset that everything was all good and things were okay and we just need to have a positive mental attitude. Since 2018 or so, like life has just kind of gone back to kicking me in the teeth in some pretty heavy ways. And it's reminded me how hard life can be. It's reminded me that there are things that are difficult. There are things that we're going to struggle with. But the one thing I always come back to is that no matter what goes on, there are things we can be grateful for. I've written about this a couple times. I'm sure I've talked about it. So if you've listened to this for a long time, just consider it a refresher. But the 4 things that we can always be grateful for, number 1 is the fact that there is something instead of nothing. This makes no sense. This makes no sense that there's something instead of nothing. Like nothing seems to be the default. So something had to happen to break that nothingness and make this something. And that is wild. Like that is something that if you really take the time to think about and invest in like trying to understand, you'll never understand it. At least I never have. But it can really like flip your perspective on this world. Just the fact that there's something instead of nothing is crazy. So that's the number 1 thing we can be grateful for. Number 2 is the fact that this something is stable. Like I understand that the conditions change, you know, wars break out or you lose your job or a relationship ends, but the basic fundamental laws of all this are stable. Like you don't walk out your front door and suddenly you're looking at the moon. Like you're not suddenly on the moon. Your car generally stays where you leave it unless something intervenes and like moves it for you, like somebody steals it or somebody borrows it. Like we live in a stable reality. So not only is there something instead of nothing, this something is stable. This something has rules, and there's things that we can trust and abide by. Some of them are very like concrete, like gravity. Gravity has never failed us that we know of. Maybe it did on the planet, millions of years ago or something. I don't know. But as far as in our own lives, gravity has never failed us, or else we would all be dead. The sun rises and the sun sets. Weather patterns come and go. I mean, there's all these things in this world that are just rules. Glasses fall and they break. They never really like reassemble and jump onto the counter. So there's like this direction to things. I'm not smart enough or well educated enough to express how many of these things there are. But the fact that this something is stable is pretty clear from the fact that we are alive at all. If it wasn't stable, like it couldn't sustain us. The fact that this something has this thing called life is amazing. And that's the third thing, is that not only is there something instead of nothing, this something is stable, we have a consciousness with which to experience it. That is easy to take for granted because like the consciousness is the only reason we would know about it. But what the hell? Like that's nuts that we are not only here, but we know we're here. Like I've had people argue with me with this, but I don't think a brick or like this table that this is sitting on, or this microphone or my sweater, I don't think they know that they're here. They're just here. We not only get to be here, but we get to experience it. We get to know we're experiencing it. And that leads us to the fourth thing, which I think is the most important, is that we have a role in our relationship to that consciousness. Like we're not just stuck feeling a certain way about things and living a certain way. Our ultimate freedom, as Viktor Frankl put it, is to choose our response in any situation. So, we can choose our response to somebody doing something mean to us or to things not going well for us. But we can also choose our response to our internal experience. That's been so important for me this year as I've experienced more depression and more anxiety and just more struggle because of health issues and all the things I mentioned earlier on, that I get to choose how I relate to those. I get to choose how I relate to depression. I get to choose how I relate to anxiety. I get to choose how I relate to these people whose character turned out to be significantly different than what I thought it was. And this realization that, oh my gosh, like this relationship that I have with this person is not, I had a misperception of it. What do I do with that? Getting to choose that relationship to this stable something is huge. And so I believe you can always come back to those four things, no matter how difficult life is, no matter how much it sucks. You can come back to those four things that you can always be grateful for those. You've had people help you in life. We've all had people help you. Somebody had to consent to carry you in their body for somewhere around 7.5, 8 months at least, probably more than that. And then like human babies, human children are useless for a really long time. So somebody had to consent. And maybe it wasn't the person that birthed you. And that, if that's the case, that sucks. And I'm sorry. But somebody consented to take care of you. Somebody consented to keep you alive for the early parts of your life. That's something to be grateful for. That's something to recognize that was done for you through no action or deserving of your own. And that's amazing. That is something we can be grateful for. We can be grateful that there are so many more things that go right than go wrong. If more things went wrong than right, this would be unlivable. We wouldn't be here talking about this. We wouldn't have this consciousness to share this experience and to talk about it, because we'd all be dead. We would all be dead. I remember talking to a guy one time, and somehow it came up like the number of wrecks I've been in. And he said, I said something about, my third wreck. And he laughed. He was like, your third wreck? Like, how many have you been in? And I counted them up, and I've been in more than the average person. I haven't been in any in like 20 years or anything, but earlier in life, dumbass young James got in a lot of wrecks. But even as somebody who's had more wrecks than anybody else I know, and a couple of them being pretty serious, I'm still safe. I'm still like the number of times that I've gotten somewhere safely versus the times I haven't is drastically outweighed. Like it's safe all the time. And in those wrecks, I haven't died yet. It's for everything that happens to us, for every bad thing that happens to us, there are tens of thousands of things that aren't bad that happen. For every person who's rude to us or mean to us or even possibly assaults us, there are millions who do not and who would not. Like a vast majority of the things that happen to us are neutral. Now, our brains are going to focus in on the things that are wrong or that weren't good for us, because they're here to keep us alive. They're not here to keep us happy. Your brain is here to make sure you stay alive. So it's going to latch onto every single thing that went wrong so that you can avoid that in the future. There's one intersection where I had my last wreck. This had to be like 16 or 17 years ago. It's just a tiny little fender bender. And it was in an intersection that I've gone through literally thousands of times, because I used to go through it 4, 5, 6 days a week going to my office. And so I wouldn't even know how many times I went through this intersection with no trouble. Guess what my brain thinks of every single time I go through that intersection? Remember when you hit that guy and how terrible it was and how miserable it was? And it was a bad day. Like the reason I rear-ended this guy was because I had just had to put my cat to sleep that morning. And my cat was my best friend for a long time. And that was hard. That really sucked. And I wasn't fully present in my driving, and I rear-ended some dude. It never, like, I didn't even have to pay for it. Like, he didn't even want to file his insurance. It didn't do any damage. Nothing came of it, but my brain still remembers it because it's something out of the norm, something that could have harmed us. So we have this inherent negativity bias that we have to overcome if we're going to be grateful. If we're going to become grateful people and practice honest, healthy gratitude, we have to overcome that negativity bias because it wants to remind us of the things that could harm us. It's doing its job. There's no reason to get sideways with it. It's doing its job. But it's our job to make sure that it doesn't run the show. So one of the best things I ever did to counteract the negativity bias of my brain, especially when I had fallen into some really like negative thinking just because of difficult things in my life, it makes sense, was I got myself this little lap counter. And somebody told me it can also be used for like baseball swings or something, but you click it and it counts up. And I started where I would carry it with me and I would click it every time something went right. It was amazing to catalog how many things go right in this world. It really just kind of blew my mind that just in every moment there's so many things going on. I remember one time I was going to the doctor to get my thyroid worked on. You know, it was during the thyroid, so it was really super messy, just a miserable time in life. Counted like 140 some odd things on the way to the doctor. I don't remember the exact number, but it was a huge number. Little things like my car starting. I backed out of the driveway safely. I have a car to drive. I live in a country where there's streets to drive on. I remember seeing people walking their dogs and playing with their kids and thinking like, how cool are we as a species that we take care of our kids for the most part, and we take care of other species and bring them into our homes. People that have a sidewalk, people having a sidewalk to walk on, there being electrical lines to provide power to homes, seeing a garbage truck coming and taking away the garbage. Like, read up on cities when garbage men go on strike and see what happens. So by the time I got to my doctor's office, just so many things had gone right that it was really just perspective changing. It was life changing in a lot of ways. And so I still try to, that one I showed you isn't actually mine, but I try to keep one that just to carry with me to have around. And I thought about it recently on Amazon, and I saw them on Amazon. I got like a box of like 6 of them to give away. And so if you're watching this and you don't mind me having your address, if you will send me an email, james@jamescotthenson.com, I'll send you one of these little lap counters, and I'll never send you anything else. I'm not going to do mailers or try to spam you with like junk mail or any shit like that. But I have these, and I like giving them to people because I think that it makes such a difference. So yeah, email me your address and I'll mail you one of these if you want them. I've only got 6, but if I get a whole bunch of requests, I'll get more. So that's one very concrete thing that you can do to just change your perspective, to change your relationship to gratitude. Get yourself the clicker, click it every single time something goes right, no matter how small it is. Click it when something goes right. And I think you'll be shocked to realize how many things go right every single day in our lives. So before we wrap up, I want to be clear one more time. This is not about toxic positivity. This is not about pretending that nothing ever goes wrong. A lot of things go wrong in life. A lot of things are so far less than ideal, and some things just straight up suck. We have to be able to acknowledge those things if we want to practice honest gratitude. If you don't acknowledge the darkness, the light is very fragile and it will go away very, very quickly. If you refuse to admit when you're in a place of darkness, you can't get out of it. Because if you're not in darkness, why would you do anything to combat it or to contest it or to do something different? So understand, it's okay to acknowledge when things go wrong. Life is hard. Life is painful. Life can really, really, really kick you in the teeth sometimes. By practicing honest gratitude, you will cultivate resilience, and you'll start to recognize too that there are more things that go right than wrong. It doesn't mean we ignore the wrong. It does not mean we ignore the wrong. It does mean we focus on the right as much as we can, though. We focus on the things that go well, and we understand that by being grateful, by remembering those 4 things about reality, by remembering that more goes right than goes wrong, we are more in the flow of reality, and we don't have to swim upstream, and life doesn't have to be so hard. When I was ungrateful and cynical and miserable, my life was miserable. It's just the way it was. How could it not be? No matter what came my way, I found the wrong in it. I snatched defeat out of the jaws of victory all the time. Somebody would offer me a job and I think, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. Oh, I'd have to get up early. You know, I would meet new people who were doing cool things and be like, oh, they're just they just don't get how hard life is. They're just stupid. No matter what, I found a way to make things suck, so things suck in my life. When I was able to shift my perspective to one of intentionally choosing gratitude, of one looking for what's going right, everything changed for me. The quickest way to do that I've found, and something I still do when that negative mentality starts popping back up, get my clicker. Get my clicker. For real. If you want one, just send me your address and I'll mail you one. James@jamesscotthenson.com. So I'm going to stay on this 2-week podcast schedule. And as I get better and better at editing these videos, it is going faster. It's becoming more manageable for me. It's been cool to learn. It's been daunting, but I have enjoyed it. Getting myself on camera all the time I'm getting used to, but I don't know that it's ever going to be something that like I enjoy or that I want to be on camera. But everybody's told me they like the video part of it. So I'm going to stick with it, and it's challenging me and it's forcing me to grow, and I'm all about that. So that's been fun. That's been cool. So in 2 weeks, we are going to talk about friendly curiosity. I can't think of any mindset that would benefit all of us more than friendly curiosity going into 2025, of moving into it with an attitude of, what is this? What's going to happen? What's going on? And what can I do with it? It's, I talk about gratitude a lot. I talk about ownership. I talk about all these things a lot. People tell me that when I get to talking about friendly curiosity, that's where I really light up. And I do know that it is something that has made my life so much easier. There's an element of gratitude in friendly curiosity. There's an element of friendly curiosity in gratitude. It's hard to have one without the other. And so when we tie them together, it does just open up so many possibilities for us in a world that often seems very restrictive and constrictive. So we're going to start the year looking at that. I will have some kind of useful resource to go with it over on Substack. So I'm looking forward to that. I think that's going to be fun. That's going to be a good way to start the year. And hopefully sometime in February, I'm going to start having some guests on. I feel like I've gotten good enough at this. I think I understand it enough to start having guests again and things like that. So I'm excited about that. I appreciate you taking the time to listen. I appreciate you joining me. Remember, you can find me on Instagram, instagram.com/James Henson Coach. You can find me on Substack. It's just jamesscotthenson.substack.com. And if you have a hard time practicing gratitude in your life, I would love to talk to you about that. I've worked with people over the years developing, honest gratitude, a healthy sense of gratitude. And it has been life-changing for them in the same way it was for me. Things like mindfulness and meditation and just little habits that we can cultivate throughout the day can really change your perspective on how you see things. And the cool thing I've learned is that when you start living in gratitude, for some reason, more and more things come your way to make you grateful. It builds on itself somehow, and it creates this it just creates a snowball or like a really healthy cycle, upward spiral to bring things into your life that you want. And so if you struggle practicing honest gratitude, if you think some of what I said is bullshit and that there's no way you could have things to be grateful for, let's talk. I would love to have that conversation. It's a conversation I've had frequently over the years, and I've never found anybody who didn't benefit from gratitude. So you can schedule a free 15-minute discovery call with me. That's at calendly.com/James Henson. Those are free. I've said it before. I'm not high pressure. I'm very intentional about who I work with. I'm very intentional about what I help people with, and I encourage people to be the same. If I'm not the right person for you, I will try to help you find somebody who is. So if there's anything in you that thinks that would be helpful to you to have that conversation, set it up and let's see if we're a good fit for each other. It's calendly.com/James Henson. Once again, I'm so grateful to you for taking the time to watch this or listen to it. I'm grateful to everybody who takes the time to read what I write on Substack, to look at what I post over on Instagram. It's the reason I keep doing this, and I appreciate the feedback. I love hearing from people. So I will look forward to talking to you again in 2 weeks. And I hope that you can find things to be grateful for in between now and then, and that just becomes a lifestyle for you. You'll never regret it.